everyone, welcome to Terraform for Beginners series. So far, we have written code in Terraform that allows us to provision resources on AWS. In this code, we used a provider block where we included our access key and secret key. This is how we connected Terraform to our AWS account to provision resources there. But revealing access key and secret key directly in the code isn't a secure practice. This is particularly concerning if you are working in a team environment. If you have included your access key and secret key in your code and that code get pushed to GitHub, your account could be compromised. That's why this approach isn't suitable for production environments due to security reasons. So let's say I remove the access key and secret key from the code, and then if I try to run the Terraform plan command, we will see an error. No valid credential sources for Terraform AWS provider found. This means without the access key and secret key, Terraform cannot establish a connection to AWS and can't provision resources there. So today we will explore how to connect Terraform to our AWS account without explicitly providing access key and secret key in the code. We are going to learn a secure way to make Terraform work without including access key and secret key directly in the code. So if you refer to Terraform documentation, you will find various authorization methods. One of the methods we are going to discuss is using environment variables. In environment variables, you create three variables: AWS access key ID, AWS secret access key, and AWS region. You then assign your actual access key, secret key, and region as values to these environment variables. Remember, the scope of the environment variable is limited to your local machine. So tomorrow, if you try to run Terraform on a different machine, you will need to set up the environment variables on that machine as well for Terraform to function correctly. As explained in the documentation, let's structure the code according to the provider block. First, we will come into our code and within the provider block, remove the access key, secret key, and region, and let's store these values in a separate file so that we can pass them using export commands. Now, let's copy these three commands and modify them as needed. For those who might not be familiar, let me explain that the export command is a way to set environment variables. Starting with the first command, we will use the access key ID environment variable and pass our access key as its value. In the second command, we will pass the AWS secret access key as a value. And in the third command, we will assign our region to the environment variable named AWS region. With these three commands in place, we will run them to set up the environment variables. Once our environment variables are all set, if we execute the Terraform plan command, it will successfully display our plan without any error. This is because we now have the necessary credentials that enable Terraform to connect to AWS securely. So that was our first method, using environment variables to pass our credentials. The second approach involves using shared configuration and credentials files. Here we create files where we store our AWS credentials and then provide the path to these files within the provider block right here. This method is quite straightforward and simple. Although it's not as commonly used, we won't be delving into these in detail. Apart from these methods, if you refer to the documentation, you will find several other techniques. For example, you can assume an IAM role or use an external credentials process. These are additional ways to pass our access key and secret key to Terraform. However, beyond this, there is another approach where we configure the AWS CLI and set up our credentials there. This method is frequently used in real world. Now, before we explore how to implement these methods in the real world scenarios, let me share that on the DevOps Pro channel, we offer various levels of membership with distinct perks. You can find out more about these perks there. So feel free to join the DevOps Pro membership and enjoy exclusive benefits to enhance your skills alongside our membership plans. So to configure AWS CLI, the first step is to install the AWS CLI itself. Let's go ahead and install AWS CLI on our machine. To install AWS CLI, simply open your browser and search for AWS CLI install. You will find the official AWS link. Visit that link and follow the provided commands specific to your operating system to install AWS CLI on your machine. In my case, since I am using Linux, I will copy the Linux command from there and run them on my system. After running all the commands, when we execute AWS command, it should run successfully without any error. This indicates that our AWS CLI installation was successful. If you encounter any error, it means there might have been an issue with the installation. While this is unlikely, if you face any error during the installation, please feel free to let us know in the comment section. As of now, our AWS CLI has been successfully installed. The next step is to configure AWS CLI, which we will cover in the following segment. Before configuring AWS CLI, let's unset the environment variables we previously set for the access key and secret key. This step is taken to ensure that after configuring AWS CLI, we can verify that it's working correctly and Terraform is able to connect to AWS easily. To unset the environment variables, we will use the unset command followed by the name of the environment variable. For example, if we name the environment variable for the access key as AWS access key ID, we will use the same name in the unset command. So the command will be the unset AWS access key ID. Similarly, for the other environment variables we created, we will use their respective names to unset them using the unset command. After unsetting the environment variables, we will run the Terraform plan command once again to see if our environment variables have been successfully unset. If we receive the same error message as before, it confirms that our environment variables are now unset. Now it's time to move on to configuring AWS CLI. To configure AWS CLI, we will run AWS configure command. This command will prompt us for various details. Firstly, it will ask for our AWS access key ID, which we will be provided after copying it. Once we enter it, the command will then ask for our AWS secret access key, where we will input our secret access key. Next, we will be prompted for our default region name. You can specify any default region here. If you don't explicitly specify a region in our Terraform file, AWS will use this region for resource provisioning. If you prefer not to use the default region, you can specify it in the provider block within your file. Following the default region input, the command will inquire about the default output format. For this, simply leave it blank and hit enter. After pressing enter, AWS CLI will be successfully configured. Now, when we run the Terraform plan command, it will execute without any error and will display our plan as expected. So today we have learned how to execute Terraform commands without passing access key and secret key directly in the code and created a more secure structure. I encourage you to give this method a try, and if you encounter any issues or have any doubts, please feel free to reach out in the comment section. If you found this informative video helpful, don't forget to like and share it. For continuous learning, remember to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video and thank you for watching.